Hello and welcome to my word web, Theories of Games and Play, as interpreted by Alexis Reeves, myself. So as you can see, I have quite an elaborate map, taking all the theories. And once I took all the theories out, I did notice a few trends amongst them. So I'm just going to direct you to a few of those trends. The first one is what Fullerton describes as role playing. That is being mostly determined by the players and the players exploring a world or environment without knowing much about it. So you can find that on page 261 of her book. And I saw this theme of role playing also exhibited if we go and look at Herbert Mead. So let's go and take a look over here. I'm just going to zoom in a bit at Herbert Mead's theory and how that relates. Okay, so he sees role playing as children taking on role play in order to practice different forms of communication and understanding of different adult type rules. And only through doing this type of play will they come to that understanding. As you can see here, the role play activities lead to understanding adult conversations, social interactions, personality development, and help them reach unity of self. So it's again talking about how role play can help children develop. Now, if we look over at another theory that sort of links to that, is Brian Sutton Smith's theory. And let's just navigate over there. Okay, so Games is Played by Brian Sutton Smith. He talks about how as societies grow and organizations within the social organizations and politics advance within those societies, the games also become more advanced as those societies become more advanced. So he's talking about basically societies growing, whereas we went back to Herbert Mead, he's talking about how children grow up through games and find understanding through that. So another type of theory that kind of links in with this theme as well, and has to do with maturities, Gregory Bateson. So let's go navigate over here to Gregory Bateson's theory on play as communication. So he talks about meta communication, so communicating through different means simultaneously. And he's saying that this develops with maturity. So he's saying that as you grow older, you're going to develop your different communication skills understood through playing. Okay, so that again links in with the theme we're talking about here is modeling, growing, and games developing. Okay, so I'm also going to navigate a little further down over here to the Sociology of Play by Roger Kailua. He talks about over here, down at the bottom, that theme again about role-playing, mimicry, and growing with the games. So he says there's 4 dominant features of games that can be combined. And number 3, as we can see, is the imitation or mimicry, where you role play, and that's the type of game it is. And success is not important in that game. He also references this role playing over here and notifying us that there are 4 qualities of play, and one of them is make believe. Okay, so again, that's that role playing, that's that fiction, and they all link to that growing up and developing themes we can see underlying all of these. Okay, so now I've navigated over to my formal definitions, and I'm going to just scoot down a bit over here, and I can let you know that there are 2 types of games as systems as defined in this category, one by Jesper Juhl and one by Katie Salen and Eric Zimmerman. They both define games as being systems and rule defined and quite formal. Okay, now if we go over to the right-hand side, we can also see over here Okay, so we are back over here where we were at Roger Kaila's Sociology of Play, where he also references this theme of very formal, rule-defined games. In his definition, he says games exist on a continuum, starting with paideia, which is more of the playful, free-spirited, not really concerned with winning, and very, very little rules, sort of a free form type of play on the one end. And then on the other end, we've got ludus, which is the very strict formal rules governing this type of play, and winning and losing is obvious in that type. Okay, so that's the theme of formal rules and very strict sort of definitions of play. And then if we go over now, let's go over to where I've noticed another theme amongst these theories, and it's where players are making meaning from play. Okay, so I'm just going to go down to, if I can find it. Yep, just down here to Chris Crawford. So his theories, there's four main features amongst all video games. So he focused more on video games. And one of those over here, as you can see, interaction. The player must influence the game to gather meaning from it. It's very important to gameplay, gathering this meaning from their interaction with it. Okay, and that sort of links in with Jewel, just for Jewel over here. So I'm just gonna go over to him, zoom out a little bit so we can navigate over. There we go, just for Jewel. Okay, so just for Jewel, as we said again, is that quite formal games are systems, rule defined. But he again notes that players need to feel, or players do feel, sorry, attached to these results from the effort that they put into attaining the goals within the game. Okay, and these feelings of attachment to the game are another way of sort of gathering meaning from gameplay, and the consequences of which can be chosen and negotiable. Okay, so let's go over now to Gregory Bateson, because he again talks about the same theme. So let's scoot up here. Okay, so back to Gregory Bateson's theory of players' communication. If we go over here, okay, so he says that again, play is how communication is formed and how people understand different communications. But then he also says over here, different actions have different meanings in different contexts. Okay, so he's again referencing the meaning making from playing games and the different actions you take within those games as the player, as that is the person doing the choosing, right? Okay, so we've got the meaning making from games that links those three theories together. Now let's go over to the Magic Circle by Johann Huizinga. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. So I've heard this referenced a few times in my readings this semester. And Fullerton also references it. She references it as the idea that gaming experiences are being set apart from other experiences. And that once players accept the invitation to play, as she says, they enter into this theoretical circle. And that's on page 57 of her book. So let's learn a little more about what this circle is and go over some of the drawbacks as well. So in his theory of the magic circle, he says there's two worlds that exist. One is within the circle, and that is in its own sort of magical world where gameplay occurs, and one that is the outside world. He says these are two totally different worlds and they do not intersect at all. And there's special rules that govern this play within the magic circle. And of course, rules on the outside world as well, where you cannot partake in gameplay. Yeah, so just to recap on that, just for Jewel Point, he took on the magic circle and he didn't change it as such, but he just restructured it to make it a circle with three layers. And then he talked about how the rules in one layer don't necessarily mean that the other rules in the other layers are ignored. So he kind of makes it a bit of a more thorough and flexible definition of the magic circle, which I quite liked, and made it a bit more modern. Um, yeah, so looking at the map, as you can see, there are a lot of theories to look at. I tried to group the ones that had similar, um, really overt themes next to each other. And I tried to talk about the ones that had most themes that I could see in common. Although, as you can see, there are a lot of themes across the board that they do have in common. And it was interesting to hear all the philosophical sort of theories over here, and then the more um, modern ones that reference video games and formal definitions and pragmatic definitions, such as the MDA model. In my opinion, I do think there is a lot of overlap, and I think that's because games are difficult to define, and it is dependent upon your own interpretations of what the game is. And of course, there are different genres, like you can see in the purple over here, to which some of these rules may be different. So it was interesting to hear about all of them. I think my own personal opinion and everyone's personal opinion will differ. But yeah, hope you can find navigating my map a bit easier. All of the theories are here and they just spread out following the arrows. Okay, thank you.